Welcome back to the Cinema Condition with your host, filmmaker, and creator of the Nerdcore Podcast Network, Raul Alejandro Mendoza, or just how I like y'all to call me, the Nerd Chicano. And as always, we are here for another movie with another guest, and today we have a new one. Yeah, no more returning guests. Yeah, last week we had a pretty good conversation with Brad, my co-host over at the Nerdcore Podcast, on Isao Takahata's 1988 film Grave of the Fireflies, and I want to thank you all so much for your support on that one. And it was an interesting conversation. But today we are joined by First Cut's own Robert Butler III, the host of the Meaning Up podcast, one of the creators of the First Cut YouTube channel. He does a lot of stuff, even a director, and one of the many people who I enjoy watching on YouTube and listening to podcasts. Robert, RB3, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people who don't know you, man.
Thank you for having me again, Raul. We've done a couple shows together before, and you're obviously a huge supporter of First Cut, and I'm a huge supporter of you and Nerd Corp and everything you guys are doing. So thank you so much for having me back, and I'm excited to talk about another movie with you today.
Yeah, man. RB3 chose Spike Lee's School Daze from 1988, and the same year as Grave of the Fireflies, by the way. That was interesting. I was like, oh, two 88 films back to back. Yeah, but RB3 does a lot of cool stuff. He's the host of the Meaning Up podcast, the podcast that basically talks about directors and the deeper meaning in their films. Mm-hmm. He also does a nice little live stream with Sabrina Ramirez and Andres Cabrera over at First Cut. It's live every other Thursday. It's a great live stream. I enjoy it a lot.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and you created some short films, correct?
Yeah, I've done a few short films on my YouTube channel. The most recent one that's like publicly released is Flick Ticks with Ken Knapsack, that I directed and wrote with my buddy Kate Hughesby. And we also have a short film called Timestamp that's about to come out soon as well. We did a crowdfunding campaign for it, and we're just finishing up post-production on that right now. Yeah,
proud supporter of that, man. I put some money down on it, even though I wish it would have been a little bit more that I could give, but we did.
Oh man, thank you. I appreciate any support, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Of course, I've got your back in whatever you're doing out here, man. I really enjoy the work that you do. I'm surprised you want to come back, and honestly, it's an honor to have you back. He was on the Impaired Files. Do not ask me which number because I don't remember, but I interviewed RB3 before the pandemic he was at a Schmodown taping, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And we made it happen, even if it was in the taping or somewhere else, man. And now we're here cozy at our homes, and we're gonna do this episode on Spike Lee's School Daze.
Yeah, no, this is one of my favorite Spike Lee movies, and obviously Spike Lee's one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. Mm-hmm. And I figured, might as well. There's been he has like a small collection of movies on Netflix, recently that, have been really interesting to explore. Mm-hmm. And School Daze kind of is a good place to start if you aren't too familiar with his filmography, but want to get kind of a taste of why people love him as a filmmaker and why people may not love him as a filmmaker.
Yeah. And what a great filmmaker to choose, man, because The Five Bloods will be coming out soon.
Yeah, another Netflix film, which is dope. I super looking forward to that. I will be reviewing The Five Bloods on Geeks of Color website really soon. I'll be probably receiving a screener for that and everything. So yeah, I'm excited to see it. This is one of my favorite filmmakers, and at least the trailer for The Five Bloods looks amazing.
Yeah, man. So before we start here, I wanted to ask how quarantine has been treating you, man.
Quarantine's been good, man. It just gives me an opportunity to work on a lot of different projects. Kind of catch up on things I've been behind on for a long time, and really just focus on creating and focus on, working on my YouTube channel, working on short films, working on projects. And even though it sucks not being like employed fully like I was before, I still just enjoy being able to explore the creative realms around me. So it's dope.
Yeah, man. I was telling you off air that I'm not employed either, and it's really hard not having to go to work. And but at least we're keeping ourselves busy somehow, right? Whatever you're doing over there on First Cut, or if you're working on scripts or stuff. I'm glad that you're keeping yourself busy.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. And I thank you for all the support you show us over here, man. I'm not sure if you listen to the shows or anything, but I'm really thankful for the support that you give us here at the Nerdcore.
Oh no, I do. I check in every now and then. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. It's like, well, I always appreciate like a dynamic, outspoken voice, in this movie space, and that's definitely what you guys are doing.
God, man, thank you so much for that, RV3. I want to get you on the main show soon, and that'll be down the line. But right now, I can't wait for us to start our conversation here on Spike Lee's School Days. So, as those of you who may not know Mr. Spike Lee, we haven't really introduced him in this podcast yet because nobody has chosen Spike Lee yet. So we have to go ahead and go through here and introduce you all to the filmmaker known as Spike Lee. So Spike Lee was born in March 20th, 1957. He's a director, he's a producer, he's a writer, he's an actor, and for those of you who may not know, he's a tenured professor over at NYU. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the universities I was actually thinking of going to. And I was thinking about going to do a master's there after I'm done here. But yeah, no, it's a little bit too expensive to go there. He's responsible for many films, some of the biggest films you'll ever hear about. Do the Right Thing in 1989, Jungle Fever in 91, Malcolm X in 92, Inside Man in 2006, Chirac in 2015, and then of course 2018's I can't remember if it was Oscar nominated for Best Picture. I think it was Black Klansman.
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But his directorial debut was She's Gotta Have It in 86. I've never seen She's Gotta Have It. But this was his second film in 88. And RB3, I want to know why would you pick Spike Lee's School Days?
Well, Spike Lee School Days, like you said, came out in 1988. It's about 32 years old right now. And it's funny because even though I think this movie came out 32 years ago, it's still incredibly relevant today. It addresses a lot of themes of, social consciousness,
Mhm.
of, being set in a, uh, historically black college,
Mhm.
HBCU. It adds a perspective to that experience that is authentic, is nuanced, that's not necessarily positive or negative. Some people might even say it's a little too critical. But it's definitely has something to say. It has a lot to say, and it does it very effectively. So I've always found this film fascinating, and like much of Spike Lee's filmography, it has a lot of highs and it has a couple of lows, but I think even the lows are worthy of appreciation too. So
Yeah. I told you this is really a review show, and this is more of a a nuanced conversation into the meaning of what the film is trying to say and what the themes are. But I will
right.
say, I only possibly have like one complaint about this film. I think this movie is like near perfect. I think it's incredible. It's probably one of his best films. A lot of his films seem to touch on a lot of these political what's it called political concepts. It's also race relations, colorism in the black community. There's
Yeah.
the media and the contemporary life, urban crime, and poverty, and all these issues that seem to be constant in the world that we live in.
Mhm.
And this film is not shy of that at all. This is to me, I think Spike is really holding the mirror up to the world, and it's like, this seems to be the issues in my community, and it's like I wish that we could get past this. And like like
Yeah.
like that incredible ending with them just screaming out, "Wake up!" This is really, it's kind of
Mhm.
Spike just holding that mirror up.
Right. Which is it's a good connection because and he ends this film with Lawrence Fishburne and all the characters screaming "Wake up" or yelling "Wake up," or particularly Lawrence Fishburne. But then that's the last line of this movie, and then the first line of his next film, "Do the Right Thing,"
Hmm.
is Samuel L. Jackson telling the audience to wake up.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting dichotomy that they kind of incorporate there
Yeah,
with.
man, it's awesome. It's very interesting. I was like, God, that whole ending was giving me chills.
Yeah, no, and I love the ending itself. I think what most people probably I think the overwhelming criticism I've heard of the film is that it does just kind of it ends almost kind of abruptly to some extent. Where it's like, there's like a major thing that happens towards like the end of the film, and then instead of really addressing it, it just kind of goes into the wake up montage, which I
Hmm.
appreciate. I think to me it shows that it, to me it shows that it's issues are a little more complicated. There's not always a clean, perfect ending. It's always
Hmm.
still what our experiences are meant to accomplish are is to gain individual perspective and to have a perspective, from our experiences in school and and issues of the Black community. So
Yeah. So the film takes place at a predominantly black college, and there seems to be what's it called? Stars. What's it called? What's his name? Lawrence Fishburne, Giancarlo Esposito, and Spike Lee is even in this film. And
yeah,
it's basically showing you the amount of the basically a black college is sort of divide inside of the community in there. You have the frat and sorority who, they think a certain way, and then you have the more revolutionary black students who are thinking a certain way. And there seems to be a lot of what's it called, a social mobility at work, and there's a lot of stuff about classism, colorism, even the whole hair bias. That was a really interesting thing that was brought up.
yeah, and I think the whole hair bias thing was a big part of the musical sequence
Mm-hmm.
between the two groups of women, the wannabes and the jigaboos. I think that's how they're categorized.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, I think it would have been really easy for Spike Lee to put all of the light skinned, more of the fair skinned, lighter skinned, complected people on the wannabe side and the darker skinned people on the jigaboo side, but he mixed it up a little bit to show you that it's not just an issue of just color. It's about an overall institution that kind of uh, implies this hair bias and who's willing to subscribe to that or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to me that's just an antithesis of what like the entire film's about. It's about the institution. It's about the system and
Mm-hmm.
how the system even how racial and institutionalized segregation has kind of put Black people in this place where we end up being divided on issues amongst ourselves, where you have one side of the coin arguing for a more, you have one side of the coin or arguing for more naturalistic hair, an outcry for colorism, for understanding of colorism,
Mm-hmm.
just amongst the female group, and in the male group, there's other dividing issues like dividing issues of masculinity,
Mm-hmm.
patriarchy, and honestly, I probably would attribute the overarching theme of the entire movie to patriarchy and how the patriarchy and class and racial and institutionalized racism
Mm-hmm.
all play parts into the divisions and the misunderstandings between Black culture.
Yeah.
But I think that's honestly kind of cool, and I appreciate Spike Lee for actually creating a film that gives arguments for both sides of the coin, and make sure that it creates a more nuanced and a little more complex understanding of a lot of these issues, and understanding that not all Black people are monoliths and not all Black people believe the same thing, and that we have to deal with our own issues inside of our own race, as well as the issues of the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I want to hit one of the first themes in this film. It's the colorism aspect in here, and I watched this film, and of course, I can never really truly understand what's going on here to a deeper extent. I'm Latino, and I'm not black. I can't really understand everything that's being told here, but colorism is a big thing in my community as well, and it's something. It's sad to see that type of stuff because it's very it's very it's things that we shouldn't have to be fighting constantly about, that we should just put aside because it wastes more time than we need to, because we need to be putting things aside to actually fight the fight that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like you said, the fraternity, the what's it called, the sorority is very the sororities are very divided. It seems that more of the light skinned women are in one fraternity with their hair more flowing straight and more less with the curls,
Mhm.
and the other sorority, it's very darker skinned women, and they're allowing their natural curls to come in. And there's this really powerful scene with Lawrence Fishburne in here with the girl, and she says that sometimes she feels that she doesn't that he's with her not because he actually likes her, but because she's a darker skinned woman, and she feels that gives him a little bit more notoriety against the whole colorism in the film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, again, like it's an overwhelming system that enacts this kind of patriarchal thought and this idea that you know you're trying to please to Eurocentric beauty standards with straight hair and and the group who have their who the group of young ladies who have their hair kind of in that kind of style of straightened and kind of almost like bleached or blonde. They are considered the wannabes of the movie, right? And
Hmm.
I think even in the song, they say "wanna be better than me," which is that's how issues of beauty standards and self-esteem, especially amongst young African American women who throughout the media have only seen themselves portrayed uh, a couple of ways, and that's with these either ultimately defined beauty standards or through um, ultimately defined Eurocentric beauty standards or through impoverished either slaves or servants in
Hmm.
classic Hollywood cinema. So there isn't really an opportunity for a free there really wasn't an opportunity for a free-minded black woman
Hmm.
to be represented in movies and in cinema. So Spike Lee really went out of his way to make sure that he incorporated a lot of these themes of femininity in this largely patriarchal story. And a lot of people criticize Spike Lee for his first film, She Gotta Have It, which I think is wonderful, but there's a valid point to be made that the main female character in that movie, who's kind of the star of that film, she's kind of just an antithesis of male insecurities, essentially.
Hmm.
But I think in this film, the women play a much more active role, even to the point where who we think is not necessarily a villain, but is supposed to represent the bad side of the coin. And Jane's character, who's dating Giancarlo's
Yeah, Julian.
Exposito, and she has a moment towards the end of the film that really gives you a lot more sympathy and empathy for her situation. How it makes you realize how even though she might be a wannabe and she's subjecting herself to these ideas of colorism and these ideas of hair texture that are negative, she still is just as equally influenced by the patriarchy as everybody else at this school.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you, man, and it's some really interesting stuff when you're coming down to that. Really, what Spike Lee is really what's it called, analyzing this film and really speaking on. And I was gonna say that there's the I can't remember. Jane, yeah, yeah. At the end, when they're what's it called? When what's his Lawrence Fishburne's character is calling out to her,
Mm,
and I was gonna say it's really interesting what Spike Lee does with the women in here because really black women aren't really what's it called as in cinema black women aren't really represented as they should be. You know, no, what's it
mm,
called? And in here, you really do see the basically what I've seen most black women speak on. Like if no one's respecting us, you know, how are we gonna respect each other?
all right.
And what's it called? I was gonna say it was very interesting that most of the women here are taking the baggage of the men.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very interesting when you're getting into the whole commentary on the patriarchy because of course we're both men who benefit from the patriarchal system that we are being played in, even
Yeah.
though we don't benefit it as much as I would say white men do.
All
But
right.
we're still men who play into that system and still benefit from it. And these
All right.
women, what's it called? At every single moment, Spike Lee's character is being told that he needs to lose his virginity. So he
Mm,
needs to take. He needs. They basically plead for any woman to try to get into bed with him. And of course, at the end, Julian finds the woman who will sleep with him. And then when she sleeps with him, he's mad at her because he thought that she wouldn't do it, even though he pleads for her to do it for the fraternity.
right.
Yeah.
And again, that just goes into the patriarchal system. And I think one of the biggest things outside of femininity and hair texture bias and self-esteem, I think a big part of this is also the fraternity system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of idea of like hazing and
Mm-hmm.
the kind of rigid sense of masculinity that at least during that time was expected to exist amongst fraternity men. And it's emphasized throughout the entire film. Like the entire movie, Spike Lee's character, I think his name is Darnell. He goes around yelling, "I'm gonna be a gamma man. I'm gonna be a gamma man." And it's fascinating because Spike Lee himself was actually in a black fraternity during his time at Morehouse. So he kind of has like a lot of firsthand experience with a lot of the stuff. So what he's portraying on screen is something that he feels very, it's a very like personal experience to him.
Yeah. And he's constantly going, trying to do everything correctly. Even, he even speaking the way that they ask him, like, when they do a, what's it called, Big Brother Dr. Feel Good, he
Yeah,
does the
yeah.
way, and he even constantly repeating the Almighty and Lance. And, he's constantly, what's it called, wanting to belong to this frat. And
Mhm,
it's very, uh, I keep saying interesting, but it is, man, because
mhm.
he's constantly looking for a home, but and obviously his cousin feels a certain way um God, why can't I remember his name? Almighty, I'm sorry,
Dap.
Almighty, Julian. Dap feels a
Uh,
certain way about Julian,
mhm.
but he's still willing to look out for his cousin and be like, hey man, please help my cousin out. Like he wants to be with y'all. Please give him the chance to be with you. Even though Julian, of course, says he has to pass the test. I'm not gonna just give him some slack. You know.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting that Dap is a character who did try and pledge for the Gamma fraternity, but didn't end up getting in himself. So that's something that that John Carlo Exposito's character Julian holds over Half Pint, who's Spike Lee's character Darnell Half Pint. So
Mhm.
it's like he holds over the fact that his older cousin couldn't make it to the fraternity, and maybe that's one of the reasons why Dap has some resentment towards Julian and the entire fraternity in general is because he didn't get in.
Mhm.
And I think the question kind of subtly implies that um, that maybe DAP takes this more revolutionary, more pro-black position as kind of an acknowledgement and as a turning his back towards the fraternity system that rejected him. So it's kind of interesting to see like that kind of dichotomy between like understanding, you know, family relationships between your cousin
Mhm.
and but also the relationship you have to your college and your community. And Dap, especially in this film, he's very outspoken about his disdain for Mission College, which is the black fraternity, the HBCU represented here. Um, and he makes it very clear of his disdain for how the school has been handling issues of apartheid as it
Mm-hmm.
relates to South Africa, which was very prevalent during the 80s with Nelson Mandela and all that stuff. So it's just fascinating that, this whole political debate kind of sparks and leads to, kind of like as an inciting incident of this movie that, remains a constant draw of conflict between the people in the fraternity and DAP, the people at the head of the administration of the school and DAP. And it literally comes down to both like DAP's family, his friends, and even his cousins and his girlfriend. So it boils down to all of these issues that we see him dealing with throughout this entire film.
Yeah, and it's really what's it called, a pivotal point with DAP, and really having to. I think that it's hard because DAP is really trying to choose, is being put in the position to choose between his fight and
Mm-hmm.
his family, friends, a girlfriend, even though you can do both. You can worry about your cause and you can worry about your friends, but it just seems that DAP is being pulled on both sides, and he has no idea how to fix that. And it's
Yeah.
because of a lot of institutional reasons that are set inside there. Basically having the community be put against each other, while the aggressors are still out there, oppressing people in South Africa, while people are still being killed in the streets by the police state and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's just one of the. Again, I go back to the idea of nuance, right? Like this movie appropriately gives you both sides of the coins for like a lot of these arguments, and regardless of which side you agree with or which side you don't, and obviously Spike Lee has a perspective. I mean, he clearly kind of portrays like the administration as kind of an overarching kind of bad guy of this movie. We do see, Julian's Dean Big Brother Almighty, how his character is kind of another one of the certified and morally irredeemable people in this film too. So, but for the most part, I think they even in having figures who are um, not necessarily representative of, and excuse me, and having figures that are not necessarily representative of the Black movement and the HBCU movement and social consciousness movements like apartheid protest and whatnot. It still gives you an added perspective and humanizes the people who aren't necessarily as politically active and are just simply looking for a sense of community amongst a Black fraternity and amongst HBCU in general.
Yeah, just some of them are just not able to take on that labor, and
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's also another one of my favorite scenes when Dap is kind of talking to his friends, and he is saying like, the school administration aren't going far enough, and they said they're gonna expel me if I keep fighting. And his friends basically tell him like, look, we're down for the movement, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be the first one in my family to finish college,
Mhm.
and nothing's going to stop me. Not even if Nelson Mandela was in America himself, basically. Like, so it's very potent and um, very dynamic to see that kind of argument of understanding that not necessarily everybody has the wherewithal of being politically active or being putting their necks on the line for a cause that
Mhm.
could negatively affect them.
Yeah, but all of us have different methods of our radical actions, and I really did connect to that scene when he's talking about that, because I come from a first generation college. I'm a first generation college student. You know, the only person who went to college in my family was my big brother, and he really did. He really is the one who set the image. And my mother, was constantly telling us to go to college. Nobody else really went to college in my family. My father went to high school, finished. He was supposed to go to college, and then just it didn't happen. My mom went for 2 years. She got pregnant with my big brother, and she obviously had to take what's it called, more responsibility. She had to take the responsibility on that because the father ran out. But
Right.
but what's it called? Some of us, we really really do want to fight. It's in our nature to want to fight, and it should be our duty to fight. But
Yeah.
some of us aren't ready to take on that labor. We want to just you know finish school because to us that's a bigger accomplishment than we could ever imagine. And I'll tell you, growing up where I grew up, a lot of us weren't expected to make it out of here.
Right.
We should have either went to jail. We should have ended up at the local, what's it called, oil rigs, working there for a good amount of money, but not a lot of stability and the benefits that come from a higher paying job. But some of us who went on to college, and I think you can what's it called, relate to that as well. Like, it was a privilege for us to go to college. It was.
Yeah.
Mm. I'm
No,
sorry.
no,
Go
yeah,
ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say it was a privilege for us to go to college, and it was a goal. It was to our family. To our family, that was like, you really did live that American dream. Even though there was constant stuff that was working against us, constant systems that were telling us that we weren't going to make it out, and we were going to go straight to jail or what's it called, oil rigs and stuff like that. Man, we still battled those odds, and to be in that position of being in college and being almost college graduates, that means a lot.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's been a very important thing in my family too. Like you said, I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college, and it's a very important thing, and it means so much to people, particularly from the Black community, because we don't have those same opportunities, we don't have those same resources to go. I was fortunate in the fact that I was able to get one of those like Gates Millennium Scholarship, before, and and that allows me to pay for my college education.
Hmm.
But a lot of people don't have that opportunity, and the people who are fortunate enough to have that opportunity are, at least like, you know, at least have an opportunity to experience the world outside of their community and outside of their more impoverished community, which I think goes right into what Samuel Jackson and his role in this film was kind of playing, was kind of giving that perspective to um, of how the locals of a lot of these HBCUs and a lot of these college towns feel with having the students be there and kind of taking over the community. And it's really, and to me, that was another big proponent moment for me too,
Hmm.
was when they went to the KFC and, Samuel Jackson and his, I think they're credited as local yodels or something like that, which is kind of funny to me. But when they go into the KFC and literally Samuel Jackson and his crew are making fun of these college kids because they just have this overall disdain towards
Hmm.
the university kids at this HBCU. Um, and this disdain kind of grows from the class inequality
Hmm.
that comes from the system that we live in America, where if you're higher educated, you're more likely to get employed than lower educated, keeping the bottom at the bottom. And even though this group, these Black men and women are just working to achieve and working to better themselves, that comes at the detriment to the locals in the area.
Hmm.
And even though I didn't go to an HBCU, I personally kind of have seen this firsthand, like through a lot of my life, through being in LA and living around USC and seeing how much USC has expanded into because people don't realize USC is really in the hood, like it's really in
Hmm.
South Central Los Angeles, and they managed to they managed to kind of take over the entire from downtown LA to um, north of Martin Luther King Boulevard. They completely took over that entire area and kind of made it and kind of for lack of a better term, kind of gentrified it.
Mm-hmm.
So and now people at USC and people who live in that area are in a position where the poor folks who have grown up in South Central their entire lives and have owned property there are few and far between, and they have to live in the middle of all of these like college students and people driving, Ferraris and Teslas on their same block. So it's just a really interesting dynamic that just kind of exists and that's like super prevalent throughout this film.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and in a way as well, UH where I go is in kind of the same situation because we're right next to Third Ward, now being called Edo, but get that shit out of my face. No, it's Third Ward.
Right.
Yeah, and it's you have all these kids kind of being around there with of course like their Teslas, their sports cars, and it's a thing. It's a lot of people. Before I went to UH, I heard so many things like, "Oh, it's such a dangerous school. You'll get mugged and stuff." And of course that comes from a very anti black and brown sentiment because the school is very predominant. It's one of the most diverse schools in Texas, and it's predominantly black and brown.
Right.
And when I get there, I'm like, what's the problem? There's no single problem out here about being mugged. I'm walking down the street pretty fine here. There's no instances of that. And then I see where we are located. I'm like, of course, you're put right next to basically the hood, and you're thought of having your school being labeled as dangerous. But in the sense, we don't think about the people who are living there next to us who have been here for centuries before the school was even built.
You're right.
How do they feel? And how do they feel having their homes being basically invaded by, people who who probably don't even give a second look to them and don't even think about them because they probably put themselves on a bigger position than they are. And I was going to say that scene with Samuel L. Jackson is probably one of my favorites here. And it reminded me of Jay-Z's story of OJ. Because what he's saying is that even if, and it's what I've subscribed to always, even if you're college educated, even if you're a higher class, black man, Latino, whatever, even if you're a fucking Bill Gates of your community, you're still seen as just another black or brown man or woman.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's you can be the best of the best. You're still seeing it as them. So don't come in here and tell yourself that you're above the lower class. The people, because at the end of the day, the police state, the government, the politicians, they still just see you for your skin color, and that's it. That's all you are. And of course, he says it with a word I'm not gonna say here. Not my word to say. So he just says that's who you are, and I think that's crazy powerful because in my community, we've had the same thing like, oh no, I went to do this, like I'm the shit now, I'm the shit. It's like, nah, dude, you're just another fucking Mexican who came from the fucking hood where I live, and you're to them, you're still just a fucking Mexican. You're nothing. You're nothing to them. So instead of us being put against each other, we have to stop that and we have to uplift each other and put ourselves on that higher ground, just like Spike Lee is kind of arguing for here in School Daze.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's something that all communities have to work together to ensure to make sure that people who are the locals are do have a voice and do have a presence, but while also making sure to remember that, your journey and you being at college is what is right for you. And that's your choice. And that's something that you're making the decision to better yourself. And unfortunately, a lot of people in this system kind of put put blame elsewhere. Like Samuel Jackson's character is kind of putting blame instead of blaming the institutions and the systems that have kind of led to this position
Mm-hmm.
of poverty in his community. He instead blames his fellow African Americans, his fellow Black people who are just trying to, like I said, encourage betterment and trying to be better, and trying to represent a better image and conceptual understanding of Black America.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and come back, but after we're done with our commercial break, we'll be back to discuss more of School Daze. And we've got a couple of left topics here that I wanted to bring up that we can talk on. But we have to go to commercial break. So guys, listen to these wonderful commercials made by wonderful people that do other shows here on the Nerdcore Podcast Network. So we'll see you when we come back after break. Hey, I'm Raul Alejandro Mendoza, and this is
Jabril Newton.
And we are the hosts of High Flyer Radio. And finally, pro wrestling has come back to the Nerdcore podcast feed in the form of a show hosted by Jabril and I. And we talk about everything and anything in the pro wrestling world on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nothing's off limits. Whatever you guys want to talk about, it is from AEW to SmackDown to Raw to NXT. Nothing's off the table. We can talk about it.
We're going to talk all about it. And if you can get it a day early, you should go to the www.patreon.com/thenerdcore and pledge to the tiers on there so you can get this show and a lot of shows days early before anybody else gets to hear it. But enough talking about it. We'll go ahead and see you there at the Squared Circle. Oh, yeah. Don't tap out. Tune in.
Hey, it's Ashley from the Gamer Core. You may remember me from such episodes as Big Screen Mess, Mo Money Mo Platforms, and Brad Can Read. Tune in weekly as I blab with my co-hosts Raul the Nerdy Chicano and Brad the Random Germ about the latest news in gaming and gush over what we're playing at the moment. Oh yeah, and we got the deals too. Keep up with the latest deals in gaming and what's happening as I mediate Brad and Raul fighting like a married couple. Will Death Stranding ever come out? Will Cyberpunk 2077 live up to the hype? Is a next-gen worth a $500 console price tag? And has there ever been a movie adaptation of a video game that's been done right? It's all on the Gamer Core podcast, everywhere where podcasts are.
Hey everyone, my name is Raul, the Nerdy Chicano, and I am the host of The Impaired Files. The Impaired Files is an interview show brought to you every Thursday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. And I interview people such as filmmakers, content creators on YouTube, and podcasters like Colton Geschwander. And if you want to listen to that early, a whole week early, all you got to do is go to the Patreon and pledge to the $1 tier. And if you want to listen to it with the general public, then go to the Nerdcore podcast feed on anchor.fm/the Nerdcore. And the case is closed, but it's not classified. See you guys there.
Hey guys, this is Brad, aka Young Yoda. Raul said I had to make an ad, so that's what I'm doing. It's supposed to be for Unstructured, but as you guys know, you can freaking catch me everywhere when it comes to this podcast feed. You can find me on the Nerd Cores, on Gamer Cores, on Nerdy Chicanos sometimes when I get lost. But for this particular one, I want you guys to go check out Unstructured. The Raul gave me free reign to do whatever I want to do. I don't know what he was thinking. So go hear me talk about LeBron James and Taco Tuesday, vaping, so many other freaking weird topics that chimichangas, that's a good one. Shout out to Deadpool. And yeah, I guess this is the end of the ad. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me all over the place on this podcast feed. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. And nerd up.
Hello, 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 guys and gals, and you're listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore. I am your host, Daniela Nunez, and along with my amazing co-host, Ashley Garcia, we discuss many things like social impact, pop culture, political realms, and any controversy surrounding the Nerdverse. Tune in and listen to us bi-weekly on the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we will love to chat and hear your thoughts on our wonderful show. And thank you again for listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore.
What's up, everybody? It is me, Raul, and I'm one of the hosts of the Nerdy Chicano Show. The Nerdy Chicano Show is a comedic show brought to you by Luis and myself, and it comes to you all every Sunday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. You can catch it a day early by becoming a Patreon and supporting us at the $1 tier. And I don't really know how to explain this show other than it's fun. We get to talk about whatever we want, and it helps you move on in the week. So if you want to catch the Nerdy Chicano show every Sunday at 8 a.m., all you got to do is go to anchor.fm/thenerdcore, and we'll see you there, baby. Hey everyone, I'm Raul.
And I'm Brad.
And we're the hosts of the Nerdcore podcast, the podcast that talks that nerd. Not on this ad, right?
Not
and
on this one.
we come to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. On the Mondays, we talk the news. That's the box office, the news of the week, and your trailer talk if there is any. And on Tuesday, we have our theme review. And on Saturday, you have a Saturday morning review, usually movies that have come out in the week or anything we want to talk about. Right, Brett?
Exactly. Whatever we want to talk about, this is our show. If you don't like it, then you don't have to listen.
We're the flagship show, the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we can be found everywhere you can listen to podcasts like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to talk that nerd stuff with us every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, make sure you tune in. And Brad?
Young Yoda out.
Welcome back to the Cinema Condition. We're here after the break. We're still discussing School Daze here with RB3, Robert Butler III. And I want to say thank you all for listening to those commercials if you did. You know, because you do have the power to just skip over them. But those commercials were recorded by wonderful people who you can go and listen to all those other shows on anchor.fm/thenerdcore. Of course, most of those shows I'm involved in them, but there's shows that, you know, other people are involved in and you can go listen to them. So do me a favor and please go and listen to those shows on anchor.fm/thenerdcore. That's the other feed where you can also find this show. But if you want to have the show more caught up, you know you have to check it out on here on the Cinema Condition feed. So we're back here with RB3, and we're gonna keep on discussing this. Man, there was one of the most interesting themes in this film is something that I wanted to talk on, and it's something that, you know, me being the person I am, I've constantly been, you know, deconstructing and trying to find the real definition of masculinity, which, you know, my experience, I've found that there really is no real definition of masculinity. And there's a very, very interesting, a form of it being brought in here, especially with Half Pint, because, you know, they obviously push him to lose his virginity. You know, they know he's not a virgin. They know he's not. They know he's a virgin. Like, even though he's like, no, I am, like, trying to be like the cool guys and be like, yeah, no, of course I'm not a virgin. Like, you know, I think he even says, like, I was with a sloozy in high school, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get your thoughts on a little bit of and have a discussion on that because you know, the concept of virginity is mostly a social construct. You know, there really is no importance to it. It's just we've been brought up, especially as men, that if we were to lose it, you know, we're like, oh, we're seen as higher than we were actually at one point. Like, we're not pussies anymore. We're not little bitches. Like, you know, we became men. We became these macho figures that were able to lose virginities, and were able to, you know, do the most natural form of procreation out here.
Yeah, masculinity is one of the, like I said, prevalent themes in this film. I think they really go into detail about the various ways you could interpret masculinity, right? Like, is it through being a man for your community, being a man for your people, being a man of revolution like Dap is, or is it conforming to a fraternity system, and is it conforming to being a part of that kind of community and being a quote gamma man? And, you know, and a lot of the times at least in this film too, especially the traditions of hazing and the traditions of the institute and the traditions of getting into a fraternity largely entails demasculating yourself. And that's something that they deal with promptly, like, throughout the entire film.
Yeah, they're constantly demasculating. Demasculine. Fuck it. I'm not gonna be able to say that's what's it called? The cons of English being your second language. Yeah, just like you have trouble pronouncing the Spanish names or the Italian filmmaker names, I have trouble saying words in English.
I have listen, I'm never going to criticize anybody for being bad at pronouncing things because I'm terrible. I'm literally
Yeah,
the
man.
worst.
I always have to tell people like, hey man, my language, my second language was English. Like my first one was Spanish. Like please understand. Like I have a pretty good job at masking my my accent. Is through experience. But having to pronounce stuff like demasculate, fuck it, I'm not gonna try it. But yeah, so he's constantly being that word, and we see he even goes to have several women interview for him to be so he could possibly take one to bed, and each of them say no. And like, of course they're gonna say no, dude. Like you're just some random ass dude who's asking one of these girls to go on a date, and you don't even know him. You don't even know him that well. But of course, it's asked of you to lose your virginity by that time. Like if you didn't lose it by college, by societal standards, you're like, well, what have you been doing? Like you got to start swinging. You got to find somebody who's gonna fuck you. And it's a very toxic way of viewing men, and it's a lot of it is why some of us aren't able to actually process our emotions correctly and why we're labeled as pussies and stuff.
I mean, and that just goes into the whole ending, right? Like where Spike Lee's character, more or less, I mean, kind of sexually assaults, if not just full out, rapes the young lady. And it's like, that's the point to where the toxic masculinity is pushed. Now, I don't necessarily think that's indicative of all fraternity experiences. I personally was part of a fraternity at USC, a professional fraternity, Delta Kappa Alpha. And that was a professional cinema fraternity that they had at USC in the USC Film School. So and that fraternity is a lot more progressive, a lot more like gender inclusive, and a lot more centered around people of color and women of color and men of color who are interested in the film industry. So being part of a professional fraternity, we did have not hazing. We never had hazing. It was more of just like challenges during our pledging semester that were fun and intense. It was intense, but it wasn't like intense in an abusive way. They gave us a lot of tasks and had us do a lot of fun things. So that's not an experience that I have. And I don't think the experience, the fraternity experience represented in school days is necessarily experience that is reflective of all Black fraternities, all HBCU fraternities, or all fraternities in general. But it is an extension and an exaggeration of the prevalent nature of toxic masculinity in the fraternity system in general.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. He outright pretty much did rape that girl because she didn't want to do it because she wanted to have sex with him. She wanted to do it for the community, for the fraternity.
Or for her boyfriend. For Julian.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that scene, it makes so Spike Lee does something really interesting. So of course, for those of you who do know, many of the movies that I enjoy, and it doesn't come from a creepy aspect. I really do enjoy the erotic dramas, the erotic thrillers. I think it's very interesting when we bring sexuality to the front. I think it's one of the aspects that we're a little bit too scared to talk about. I think that we kind of hide it from a lot of people. But to be proud, not to be proud, but to be interested in sex is not a bad thing. I think it's something that we owe to ourselves to be open about and really put it out to the forefront. A lot of the scripts that I write deal a lot with sexuality. So it's very interesting that Spike Lee, the way he films those first sex scenes, so with Dap and his girlfriend, with Julian and his girlfriend, they're very beautiful, they're very sensual. And then that scene with what's it called, Half Pint, and the girl and Julian's girlfriend, it feels very odd. It shows that there's malintentions in there.
Yeah, it's very awkward. Like you said, the other scenes are a lot more steamy, a lot more vibrant use of colors, and much like kind of flashier editing. But yeah, like you said, like with this one, this is not one of those kind of like beautiful, loving moments. Like it's really awkward and it's really kind of destructive and terrible.
Yeah, but it's those very systems that we uphold that give power to these and give power to rape culture and give power to these very toxic way of bringing up men instead of this fraternity just being like, it's fine if you've never, if you're still a virgin, that's fine. You relatively, you're young as hell, like you still got time. What was that kid was probably like around 18 years old, like you've got a shit ton of time to lose it, and it's fine. But instead of doing that, we uphold these systems which create some very dangerous men. And it comes down once again what this film is trying to ultimately say. It comes down to the way that we treat ourselves and that we view ourselves, instead of taking the time to uphold these very dangerous systems.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%.
So we're what's it called? We're still trucking along here, man, and we've got some good stuff. But I really wanted to bring up that the masculinity in here, because that stuff really interests me. Like, of course, I was raised very differently. I was raised that it was okay to cry, that you cry when you cry, you show your feelings, and what's it called? You respect women, you treat them a certain way. You don't say all these things and stuff. So when we got to this part of the film, I was really, really interested. And it was probably the first thing I wrote down. I was like, oh, I want to talk about masculinity in this, because it's very much it's. And especially, and I can't speak on the black community because I don't know how it is in the black community. But from the Latino community, this is something that's constantly happening. Like, where's your girlfriend? Like, you should have a girlfriend by now. You should have had all these women all over you. Like, if you don't have an interest in women and you don't have all these things, like, you're viewed as like, well, what the fuck are you doing then, dude? Like, you're basically a pussy. They view you as a pussy because, you're not this womanizing figure that you're supposed to be.
You're right. I mean, it's very polarizing, and it's very, again, it goes into that, like I said before, it's that whole mentality of the patriarchy, right? Like the mentality of subscribing to a system that is not only indicative of this kind of behavior, but in some ways applies it. And I think what Spike Lee's doing here is he's kind of going against the grain and not applauding that behavior. It's just another example of, I personally think Spike Lee's a very like woke filmmaker. I think a lot of his films are kind of ahead of their time, and they kind of tell stories that may have not been popular when they came out, but I think over time history is a little more gracious towards them. I think this is like one of those examples of something that, like, the things that he was saying in this film were not largely registered in the same kind of way that they would be registered now in 2020. But the fact that he's able to have the bravery to open up those discussions is very powerful.
Yeah, man. So we're almost nearing the end here, man. Is there anything that that we haven't really touched yet that you would want to bring up?
Well, I mean, I just want to like shout out a couple like my favorite scenes. Like I love the scene when I think it's early on in the film where the gamma fights, where like the pledges have to like do their little stepping song in front of the like in the house, and then in front of like the Giancarlo Esposito's Julian and in front of the crew, and then Julian does this like military style kind of like drilling of each of the pledges, like who, and trying to single out like who's the standout. And for me, it's so funny, it's so like stylistic, and it's it's very like obviously influenced by like militaristic. It's probably, I think this came out the year after Kubrick did the Vietnam movie,
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, exactly. And I'm sure that he probably took at least a little inspiration from the military scenes in there. But yeah, I really, that's one of my favorite scenes. I also love the Ozzie Davis scene when he is like the football coach in the locker room, and he's
Oh,
giving that speech. That to me is one of the most hilarious speeches or monologues I've ever seen. And I love that Ozzie Davis kind of has always been the monologue guy in every single Spike Lee movie. And I love that he has that big monologue there. That to me is just amazing. And
what is it that he says? The devil's in the next locker room and he wants us to lose.
yeah. do you want to stand with the devil or do you want to fight? Yeah, it's just funny. Like it's just really, really funny. And he's like, "Do you want me to lose my job?" Like all of his lines. And the funniest part to me is that he gives like the most amazing speech ever.
Oh, it was
and
great.
Then they go out there and get totally blown out.
I love that he doesn't, and I don't know if it's because the budget didn't allow for them to do a full-on football game, but I love the only thing you're seeing is the numbers and the people reacting like, "Come on, man! Like you got to get the ball."
Yeah. Now that to me is one of my that's another one of my favorite moments too.
God, yeah, I love that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm usually not a musical guy. I loved the what's it called the choreography and the hair song. Love that. I think that was fantastic, and it's also just once again all these women are beautiful women, and they did a great job at it with the costumes and with the styling of the hair and the makeup, and it all was fantastic. I love that scene. I love the what's it called? I thought, of course, the big thing. A lot of the commentary on this is about hazing and fraternities. What's it called? I like that. What's it called? The faces they were like, oh, like they were actually making real faces that I think I would be making if somebody was slapping my ass with that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's played for laughs, it's played for jokes, but ultimately it was really, really funny stuff. So I really dug it.
Yeah, I also love how they look, man. I'm not a KFC guy. I'm more of a fan of Popeyes and
Me too.
Yeah, have you ever had Jollibee? I like that more.
Jollibee, is that the Filipino place?
Yeah, the Filipino place.
I've had Jollibee. I've been to Jollibee.
Bro, that's my favorite fried chicken. I
Really?
love Jollibee. But dude, I love how they were like, dude, can we at least finish the chicken first? Like I want to you paid for all that shit and you're leaving it there. Even though I will say I'm not the biggest fan of KFC. Like
Yeah, but I think back then, probably, I mean, at least I think probably in 1988, KFC was like the hottest stuff on the streets. But to me, that's also one of my favorite scenes because every single beat in that scene is just hilarious to me. Like when they're at the cash register and she's like, "Do you have white?" And she's like, "Do you want white meat or dark meat?" And he's like, "I want white meat." And she's like, "Sorry, we don't have white meat." He's like, "Well, why'd you ask?" And then it goes right into them all sitting down and eating, and it's like, "You pass the salt," and then they go over to Samuel Jackson's and those characters, and then he's like, "You pass me the salt," and he's like, "When we done or when we finished," and then and he's like, "Well, when will we be finished?" And he kind of gives him this look and like this long pause. And then he's like, "What time it is?" And then he did like the goofy laugh and the hand movements. And to me, that's just hilarious too.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many funny moments just throughout this entire movie.
Well, yeah, because and I think that's kind of Spike Lee saying sometimes we have to laugh at the ridiculousness of our own communities.
Yeah.
I think that was great. I love that whole why you're talking because I was watching. So I showed my mom Uncut Gems, and it's called that moment when KG's like, "What the fuck are you bringing out the Opal for if I can't buy it? So what are you showing me it for?" It's the same thing. Like, why are you asking me for white meat or dark meat if I can't even fucking buy it? You don't even have fucking white meat. Oh man, I love that. I thought that was hilarious, and he does that in this. It's what Spike Lee has always done really well in his films is that he knows how to balance the humor with the seriousness. Because after all that, we still go back to what's it called. We get to that amazing ending of the wake up and the beautiful colors, and kind of get that kind of giving you a sneak peek of that beautiful palette and that beautiful look of what is going to come and do the right thing.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, the last line in this movie is "wake up." The first line and "do the right thing" is "wake up." And you kind of see it's kind of a transition of I don't want to say it's like a transition of presence, but it's a transition or a transition of messages. But it's kind of an extension of the greater complexity that Spike Lee's kind of getting at.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, his first film, She Gotta Have It, dealt with femininity and sexual relations, and his second film dealt with college and HBCUs and um, institutions of racism amongst higher education. Do the Right Thing will ultimately go on to focus on the community, the neighborhood aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
um, all of those sentiments. And I think that's probably the most exciting part about it.
Yes, sir. So that is it. That's our conversation on Spike Lee's School Days. And I got to say, it was an incredible conversation, RB3. I really, really do appreciate you coming on, man. I'm pretty sure this has got to be like almost like an hour and 12 or 15 minutes. I'm not sure. I'll look at it when I take this to the editing room. But I really want to thank you, man, for picking this film. Like I said, I love this film. This has got to be one of my favorites from Spike Lee. I even texted I texted my co-host. I was like, dude, this movie's pretty fucking awesome. Like, you should watch this. Like, I really do. I really do enjoy what he's saying, what Spike Lee's saying here.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm super, super excited.
All right, man. Well, now we've met and we've reached the moment of truth, my friend. Okay, so every single guest on the Cinema Condition is told to recommend a film and also call dibs on the film for season 2. Of course, the film can't be the same one. So
Right.
yeah. So RB3, before we go ahead and leave here, what is the movie that you recommend the people go check out right now?
Well, I would recommend people check out. Obviously, this movie's on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
The Spike Lee film that we're talking about, School Days, is on Netflix. And another Spike Lee film that I think deserves a lot more recognition than it probably has gotten. That is also on Netflix. Is called Get on the Bus. It came
Mm-hmm.
out in 1996, and it's all about a bus full of young black men, not just young black men, a bus full of black men who are taking a bus ride down to Washington, D.C. for the Million Man's March that happened in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
And much like School Days, it gives you a nuanced perspective on the black experience. It gives you like a clear understanding of, what different perspectives in the black community are all kind of saying about the culture that we kind of live in and dwell in. And I think and I think it's a very great conversation piece for people who aren't necessarily familiar with the Millions Man March or familiar with the mission of people like Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. So I think it's very, very powerful, and it's a really, really good. It's a really, really well made movie too, as opposed to some Spike Lee movies that kind of go up and down with the storytelling and the themes. This one kind of just has a very simple plot, and it allows for a lot more just kind of linear, forward-thinking kind of discussions of ideology and perspective.
Awesome, man. So go guys, go and check that film. I'm gonna be checking it out. We don't act like we ain't got time, guys. We got time to watch these movies. So take RB3's advice and go check out that film. It's also on Netflix, right?
Yeah, it's also on Netflix.
Yep, awesome. And I can't wait to watch the Five Bloods when it comes out because I love that trailer.
Yeah, me too. I'm super excited.
I'm super, super excited. Might just even do a review for my website. I don't know. So,
Yeah.
Guys, go ahead and check that out. And RB3, of course, there is the season 2 pick. We've had a lot of films be picked, from Portrait of a Lady on Fire from Celine Sciamma, and my co-host picked Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker. I can't wait. God.
Oh,
man, I asked y'all on that live stream, like, when y'all gonna talk fucking Tarkovsky, because I believe Tarkovsky's possibly one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. What he was depressed as shit, but that was God. He's an incredible filmmaker. So
yeah.
RB3, I want to know, which is the movie you're calling dibs on for season 2.
Well, I am going to go with another pick from another black filmmaker, but not Spike Lee this time. I'm actually gonna talk about something a little close to home and represent one of my biggest direct inspirations on my entire life. R.I.P. Mr. John Singleton, and I'm probably gonna pick Boys in the Hood as my pick for next season.
Oh hell yeah, man! I can't wait for that one. I'm glad that you chose John Singleton, cause I've been waiting for somebody to pick that one too.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, RB3, and you'll be seeing them come back for season 2. And don't be surprised if I give RB3 more slots in season 2. So I'll have him come back for more movies. But for now, this will be the last time you'll hear from him, and we'll have him come back in season 2 of the Cinema Condition. Whenever that'll probably be, I want to say, so we're on track. This is episode 18, so we're on track to finish by the end of summer. So we will probably come back in winter for season 2. So I'll hit you up about scheduling and everything to come back. But we're setting up for a great season in season 2, and I'm so thankful that you were able to come on, man.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate being here, and I thank you so much
for
allowing me to be here.
You're a talented director. You're a talented podcaster. You're just a great content creator, man, all around. And you're great in what you do, and you have a lot of heart into it. And you're a great man, dude. You're a sweet dude. So, what's it called? It's what I wish a lot of us in the space were like on. I wish that we were all kind of like you, just sweet and just nice to each other, and not complete assholes like I see online.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And I'm happy that I get to hang with people like you, Raul, who's just passionate, and we all believe in the same things of just working towards an ultimate better goal. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I'm hoping that I can hit you guys up on the Meeting Up podcast one day. Let's go. I know you've been planning something for me. You wanted to get something in there, but what's it called? Let me know whenever you want me to get on, man. I like I said, my areas of expertise are always the Italian films.
Oh, okay, for sure, most definitely, man.
I love those Italian films, and RB3 was the only person who I went to show him my 8.5 film essay. So.
Oh yeah, that was great. That was a great essay, man.
Yeah, fucking YouTube really screwed the pooch on that. They didn't let me they didn't let me upload it, but whatever. As always, RB3, where can they find you on the internet, bro?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Director RB3.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, my bad. Also on YouTube, First Cut.
YouTube First Cut, podcast, Meeting Up podcast. Guys, do yourself a favor. Please subscribe to that podcast feed. Leave them a 5-star review on Apple or Stitcher, or both. Do both. It would be great. And go and check them out, guys. And no, this week isn't live stream week. It's next week.
Next week is going to be live stream week. Yep.
Yeah, I'm getting my date switched up here, but in quarantine, of course, you're like, what day is it? So, without further ado, it's been a lot of fun. As always, you can find me at the Nerdy Chicano on both Instagram and Twitter, and thenerdcore.com for my written reviews of such and all the other. What's up, man? You wanted to bring something up?
Oh no, I was just clapping.
Okay. I was like, oh crap, what's it called? I was like, oh crap, did RB3 forget to say something? But
no. Applause.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, Nerdy Chicano on both Instagram and Twitter, nerdcore.com for reviews and recommended viewing. There's a page where it has all the movies that we've covered here on the Cinema Condition. Of course, I got to update it soon, but most of them are on there where you can go buy them on Amazon and stuff like that. No affiliate links. I just wanted you guys to find the movies and watch them yourselves. So go over there. And as always, like I said, I don't really have an outro here. I just kind of remind you guys, the Cinema Condition, my friends. I named this show the Cinema Condition because cinema is a conversation on what makes us us, and that is the human condition. And the best way for us to become better humans is to surround ourselves with art, and with the art that we have created and centuries of our people have created. So my friends, sit down, watch a movie, and I'll go ahead and see you guys on the next one when I have nobody planned yet. I'm gonna pull a hat out of pull a name out of the hat, but more than likely, it's gonna be a new guest. So we'll see you guys on the next one. But in the meantime, what's it called? You have yourself a nice day.